Then there is going to be the various successes of the extremists. That means over the time period, okay, what happened is that these extremist people, they are going to have the successes at that point of time. Okay, and what is going to be success, what is going to be their success is that because of these people, much more of the masses, they started participating in the national movement. They became politically educated as to how movements are conducted. They became politically aware as to how the Britishers were against the Indians, and that is the time there was increase in the political nationalism in India also. So these are going to be the successes, whereas they also had certain negatives. Okay, they also had certain negatives. All right, so they failed to appreciate the contribution of the moderates. They considered the moderates to be weak nationalists and generally called them what, mendicants. The critical attitude towards the moderates resulted in a serious ideological divide in Congress, and the Surat Split in 1907 was the outcome of the same. The use of religious programs and slogans by the extremists adversely affected the secular character of national movement. So this is what I explained to you. This allowed the critics of Congress to portray it as Hindu organization, okay, character of national movement. The reactionary elements among the extremist leaders created a wrong impression as if the extremists were against social reform. So this also I just explained here. Okay, so these are going to be the aspect of the extremists that are going to be there. Okay, so that is the scenario. Now, when we talk, okay, this is going to be the aspect of the extremist. Now, when we talk, what is going to happen here? Okay, what do we know of the scenario is that we are aware that by the time period of 1907, what is going to happen is that there is going to be a Surat split that is going to happen. Now, what was the scenario that was there? Let us just understand the brief aspect here as to what is going to be the scenario here. Now, when we are talking about the scenario, what do we understand is that by the time period of 1906, between 1906 and 1907, the extremists, they wanted to take the Swadeshi and boycott outside of Bengal, and they wanted to spread it in the whole of India. However, the moderates did not want it. Okay, moderates, they just wanted a little bit of constitutional reforms from the Britishers, and in order to get those reforms, the moderates, they were thinking that we are doing this Swadeshi movement, so the Britishers would realize and they would give the reforms. And we have already known they wanted political, economic, social reforms. So the Britishers were also sitting behind and eating popcorn and just looking that these are the situations that has arisen between the extremists and moderates. So, and at that point of time only, when the tussle was there, the Britishers, they are going to put the bomb. What the Britishers are going to do is that they are going to announce in 1907 that they shall be bringing some council reforms. Okay, some council reforms. And those particular council reforms, the moderates, from the moderates, they had always wanted some kind of reforms, and now when the Britishers had told that we will bring council reforms, at that point of time the moderates, the particular moderates, they believed that we should not continue the movement. Okay, and then there is going to be the Surat split. But in the previous session we looked into this, but let's go much deeper here. The Britishers, they believed that if the Britishers believed that if the extremist, okay, if the extremist and moderates, they were on one page, that would lead to increase in nationalism, increase in the national movement of India. The Britishers knew this. The Britishers knew that if the moderates and the extremists, they were united, if the INC was united, so it would lead to increase in national movement, and if the national movement increased, it would lead to the British forcing the British to close down their shop in India and go. So that the British never wanted, because over a long period of time, if a political movement is very much strong, obviously the Britishers would have to leave. So the Britishers never wanted a strong national movement. So the Britishers never wanted a strong INC. That is why they were looking, they were in the backdrop of how the things were unfolding, they were always looking at what are the situations that are there between the extremists and the moderates. And at that point of time, the Britishers, they are going to come up with a new policy which they would utilize to, divide or break the Congress. And that particular policy, it was known as the carrot and stick policy. The carrot and stick policy. Now, what was the carrot and stick policy? The carrot and stick policy was that here, prior to giving the council reforms, what the Britishers did is, when there is going to be increased Swadeshi movement struggles, okay, in Bengal, what the Britishers did is that the Britishers, they are going to mildly beat the extremist with a stick. And how was that mild beating with a stick? That is, normally when they are going to protest, just doing a little bit of lathi charge or just arresting them like that. So when they are being arrested, at that point of time, the moderates are like, oh, the Britishers, what are they doing? They are beating the extremists and all. So the moderates, they got scared. And just after mildly repressing the extremists, what the Britishers did is, they gave the carrot to whom? The moderates. That we are giving council reforms. We are going to bring council reforms. So now the moderates were of the idea that, oh, we are getting the council reforms, and simultaneously, if we are continuing the Swadeshi movement, the Britishers are beating us. The Britishers are beating the extremists. So if they are beating the extremists, so it's better that we stop it. Because if the movement continues, the Britishers would have a very severe suppression. So at that point of time, when they had gotten the carrot and they were scared of a much more heavier stick put on the extremist, at that point of time, they are going to tell the extremists that, we guess we should slower down the movement. And at that point of time, the extremists, because they were beaten with a stick, the extremists were like, no, we should increase the movement to the whole national level. But the moderates were like, no. And that is the time when the session is going to happen in the Surat, and the extremist wanted their representative, an extremist person, to preside on the chairmanship, such as Bal Gangadhar Tilak or Lala Lajpat Rai. But here once again the moderates won, and moderates are going to appoint Raj Bihari Ghosh to be the president. And looking at a severe stick that could come, okay, and looking at they had already got the carrot, what the moderates did is that they decided to stop the Swadeshi movement, boycott, and national education. And at that point of time, the INC is going to be telling, the extremists are going to be telling that if you stop this, we shall be separating ourselves from the Congress. So the moderates are like, okay, no worries, you can leave the Congress. So that is what they are going to be telling at that point of time. So that is how in the year of 1907 in the Surat area, the INC, it got divided. And when the INC was divided, at that point of time, there is going to be the particular, this particular incident, it was known as the Surat Split. Okay, so this was how the things had unfolded at that point of time.